What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. And today we're back looking at transfers, Transfer Watch, going through two of the most transfer players out, two of the most transfer players in, talking about kind of why that's happening, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, people being a bit quick to jump the gun on bringing these players in or taking them out, that kind of thing. We're trying a few different things on the channel now, so if this is kind of content that you enjoy, make sure to give it a like and leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, I'll jump straight into it with Kevin De Bruyne. So 53,429 transfers out currently. Obviously, lots of these transfers are probably driven by a bit of frustration. So obviously, this video is going out on Monday. We know Kevin De Bruyne has missed the Manchester United game through injury. We don't yet know whether he's going to play the Arsenal game and kind of what it'll be like for the Burnley game after that, and so on at the moment. So a lot of these transfers are probably a bit of frustration that he's missed out, and now starting to bring in other players that have perhaps performed in Gameweek 29 and now kind of looking forward. So the info we've got from Pep has kind of changed a little bit, although to be fair, he never said he wasn't or was going to play in any of the kind of quotes that came out. But before the deadline for Gameweek 29, he did sound a little bit more positive than he initially did when he missed the FA Cup game. But after the match, he said he's getting better. This is obviously about Kevin De Bruyne. I don't know when he's going to come back, but he's getting better. So we don't really know what that means. Is he getting better enough to play against Burnley, to play against Arsenal, to play in the Champions League? We just don't know at the moment. I think at this stage, there's not really much you can do about it. So if you're getting frustrated, fair enough. But the deadline's already passed. You can't do anything about whether he plays against Arsenal or not. So I'd probably just wait a little bit longer. Try and get some more info from Pep after the Arsenal game. Obviously, if he plays, even better. And obviously, we'll have a press conference before the Burnley game as well to consider kind of any new quotes about when he might be back. Interestingly, though, Pep did kind of say that he's got two important games, which are obviously Newcastle in the FA Cup and Real Madrid in the Champions League. So perhaps that's kind of the first hint that he's probably focusing towards those games. And to be honest, as FPL managers, we probably realise that's coming because the league is over. Top four is pretty much done, although it's not mathematically done at the moment. But obviously, they're going to start concentrating on the cups they can still win. So they've already got the Carabao Cup under the belt. So FA Cup and Champions League makes sense. So even if De Bruyne is fit to play, we might see a bit of either rotation or maybe a few more kind of minutes managed. You know, they've got other players that can come in that squad to play in his position. Maybe not quite as good as him, of course. He's probably one of the best, if not the best player in the league. But they have got players that can do a job, especially against maybe weaker sides, potentially like Burnley. So we'll see what happens there. So the key question is, you know, they've got Burnley at home. Are we going to be sure that he plays in that game? Then it's a blank. Then it's Liverpool at home. Should we be keeping? And I can tell you now, as a non-De Bruyne owner from experience, it's not fun watching Man City play when he is in the team. But the question is, obviously, will he continue to be in the team? And you know, if the focus is going to be on the cup games, then maybe he's going to get, like I said, his minutes managed a little bit. I think I would probably keep him unless Pep is certain that he's not going to play against Burnley. You could start Gameweek 31 prep, potentially start bringing in other midfielders that are playing in Gameweek 31. Perhaps you want to go to someone like Bruno Fernandes instead. But I just think there's enough upside in him if he plays that Burnley game of getting points, especially when people are starting to transfer him out. Obviously, he's not going to become a differential overnight. You'd need a lot more transfers out. But if you think he's going to get points against Burnley, then I would definitely keep. Obviously, he's one of the highest priced midfielders in the game, so you can literally switch to anyone potentially after that. And from Gameweek 33, they've got some pretty nice fixtures, but at the moment that seems a little bit too far away to even think about because lots could change then with kind of Champions League. They might even go out against Real Madrid, in which case they've only got the FA Cup focus on. So for me, I think it's way too early to be transferring him out. I think if he plays in that Burnley game, there could be a bit of a haul coming there. Let's wait and see if he either plays against Arsenal and then see what Pep says about him. Talking about Bruno Fernandes, what a player, cannot stop scoring points. 66,910 transfers in already. The most transferred in player so far this week ahead of Gameweek 30. And obviously he had that blank against Wolves. That was his first game for Man United in the league. But since then, he's had attacking returns for 4 games in a row. And over the last 4, he's got 9 points per game, which is pretty incredible. Obviously, very small sample size. Let's see if he can do it over the course of a season. But right now, he's looking very, very good. And you can see why these transfers have been coming in. And obviously, up next is Spurs, who have not been looking too great themselves. So it's not even that bad a fixture right now. Like in kind of seasons gone past, I'd kind of try and avoid maybe top 6 teams like Spurs. But right now, it's not the same Spurs team it has been in the past. All kind of eyes on whether Jose Mourinho completely parks the bus. Obviously, played a lot of centre-backs against Burnley. May try and do something similar against Man United. But right now, that Spurs game doesn't look too bad to bring in Fernandes. So I can see why people are doing it. Obviously, there is the blank game week to think about. You don't want to try and focus too much on that, but it is obviously something you have to think about. It is coming. It's only 2 weeks away now, so you've got to have your kind of eyes on the prize, and that game is going to have a bunch of players not playing, and one of those is Bruno Fernandes. So if he fits in with your plans, great. If you're going to get a bit stuck maybe for Game Week 31 by bringing him in, it might not be the worst fixture to miss out on that Spurs game, but he is in incredible form. His price is only going on the up as well. And suddenly, he was 8 million, now he's 8.4 million. Is he going to go up to 8.5, 8.6? It starts to get a bit more, or a lot more money to pay for. So after Game Week 31, the fixtures are pretty good, worth mentioning. Brighton away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, and Southampton at home. So that is a good run. If he's already gotten 9 points per game, and let's not forget, this is against Chelsea, Watford, Everton, and Man City, and he could have had a penalty against Man City as well. I mean, we won't debate it too much in this video, but on another day, the penalty against Fred gets given, he puts it away, and that's 3 bonus points in the bag, plus the points for the goal as well, and suddenly he's got another double-digit haul. So if you can get 9 points per game against those fixtures, or in those fixtures, the good fixtures they've got coming up, you know, it's unlikely to get higher than 9 points per game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's going to continue scoring double-figure hauls every single week, but you'd like to think that he could keep up some kind of point scoring against those games. And one thing to consider is Man United are still competing in Europe, obviously in the Europa League, not Champions League, unfortunately, and the FA Cup. So at some stage, we may see his minutes managed, but from watching him, he's a bit of a, you know, he's one of those players that's got a bit of an engine about him. He's constantly running. He came off in the Man City game, but it was quite close to the end. He didn't really stop running at any point or even look like he needed to. And that could change over time. If he keeps having to play like that, then maybe he will need his minutes managed more. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen too often. And to be honest, Man United are such a different side without him. I don't think Solskjaer can really consider dropping him anytime soon. So I'd expect to see him not kind of have his minutes managed, especially if you get like a kind of a lead in the Europa League maybe, and you don't need him so much for the second leg or whatever it might be. Hopefully he'll get rested then. So he's really transformed things around at Man United. Like I said, completely different team with him in the side. As long as he doesn't affect your Game Week 31 plans, I can absolutely see why people are getting him in. There's really not a huge amount of midfielders to choose from outside of Salah and Mane, of course. De Bruyne, if he's going to keep playing, and you're not worried about the blank and the Liverpool game. Obviously, Son's injured, so you start getting down to the 8 million price. You got kind of him, Martial, Richarlison. So there's not too many midfielders, and right now he looks like the one to buy. So 66,000 transfer in is only going to increase, and I can absolutely see why it's a great purchase. Danny Ings, hugely frustrating for FPL managers that have continued to hold on to him, like myself. Obviously, in Game Week 29, he played against Newcastle after missing out in Game Week 28. But because of the red card that happened in that game for Southampton, he was kind of pushed out wide for more than half the game, which is obviously not good for a striker that you want to be playing up front and central for most of that game. Obviously, he had to do a lot of work, and that really didn't help his FPL returns, of which he had none again. So that's now, I think, 1 return in 7 games, which is obviously just not good enough. And we did see something similar happen back in, all the way back in Game Week 10 now. If you remember when Leicester absolutely smashed Southampton 9-0, there was a red card in that game, and he didn't get kept on like he did against Newcastle. But he did come off at half-time, and obviously that affected his performance. And after that, it was Man City. But following that, he scored for 5 games in a row. So I'm not saying he'll do that again, but I would say he's been unfortunate, especially if you still own him, because at the Game Week 28 game, we didn't find out until after the deadline that he hadn't been training. They had to miss the game, or at least start on the bench. And obviously, he only got a kind of 20-ish minute appearance. And then this week, we think Newcastle at home, that looks like a good game. They get a red card, and he's pushed out wide. So the last 2 games, it's hard to go on whether it's time to get rid of him or not. I think the problem this time with kind of trying to score 5 game weeks in a row is, one, it's impossible because they've got a blank game week after Norwich away. Norwich away also looks quite tough. And then after the blank, Watford away, Man City at home, Everton away, and Man United away. So Watford, I think, is still quite hard to kind of call exactly how those games will go, but I would expect it to be tight. Man City, obviously, always difficult. Everton, again, just got smashed by Chelsea, but they've been doing pretty well recently. And Man United away is definitely a tricky fixture to go to Old Trafford. So I'm not really seeing where the points are coming. And we saw how much Leicester kind of struggled against Norwich when they played them away from home as well. So I can see why people are transferring out. I think, again, very team dependent. So for me, for example, there's probably another 1 or 2 transfers I want to make before I take Ings out, but he will probably be gone by game week 31. And I think even if I have to take a hit, I may bring someone like Troy Deeney in because I want him longer term than I do Danny Ings. I think maybe it's just time for him. His time is up. Obviously, been out of form. Very unlucky the last 2 games, I would say. But the fixtures are just not there. Blank game week, etc. I'll probably look to get rid. So I think people are right probably to transfer him out at this point. Obviously, I never like early transfers, but I can see why people are doing it. I don't think he necessarily is a kind of must sell for this week. But I think Norwich away is tough. It's going to be hard for Southampton to get a result there. And ultimately, a lot of people are going to get rid of him before game week 31 anyway. So fair enough if you do it early. I think this is a pretty good transfer out. And last up, we've got Raul Jimenez, 28,348 transfers in. So obviously sticking with strikers here. And then this is ahead of a game against West Ham away, basically, in game week 30. And then a pretty nice fixture against Bournemouth at home in game week 31. And a few weeks ago, I would have said that West Ham game was very good, good time to play them. But they have looked much better since that Liverpool game. Obviously, that was a really good performance. And they played Southampton, did well. They've just done, although they lost against Arsenal, they played very well in that game. I watched that whole game, and to be honest, they were very unlucky not to take away a point, maybe even 3 points. On another day, Antonio doesn't miss from 3 yards. And suddenly it's a completely different game. Arsenal just didn't look good at all. And I don't think it was necessarily just down to Arsenal not playing well. It was due to West Ham playing extremely well. Especially players like Antonio just looking good form right now. So that will be a tricky enough game. But I can see why people are bringing Jimenez, especially again. We're going to see a lot of transfers converging to kind of game week 31 players. Obviously, there's only 8 teams playing. So there's a small pool of players to go for. So Jota had kind of been the man recently that everyone had been looking at. He's now gone up to 6.4 million. So obviously he's still a lot cheaper than Jimenez. But Jimenez is Mr. Reliable, and he has been for the whole season. 19 attacking returns in 29 games. Pretty impressive. 13 goals, 6 assists. And after West Ham and Bournemouth, they also play Aston Villa away. A side that we've talked many times about how many chances they like to concede, and I don't see why that would change against Wolves. So a bit worrying maybe they didn't get anything against Brighton. Obviously that was a kind of a boring 0-0 there. But going forward, they got fixtures that they can definitely get goals in. Hopefully still keep clean sheets if you're holding on to the likes of Sykes, Doherty or Bolly. But going back to Jimenez, I think Jota has been good. And he can be a bit of a streaky player. So there's nothing to say that he can't keep continuing to score over the next few fixtures. And if he does, there could be some double-digit hauls there. But I feel like Jimenez is just one of those players you can almost set and forget. You get him in, you know he's going to be good, you know he's going to get your returns over time. Yes, it's 8 million. It's not completely out of the world, this world to kind of pay that price for a forward at the moment. You know, Firmino not looking great. Vardy potentially going to miss part of the game against Aston Villa and then has kind of tougher fixtures. Obviously, he's kind of close to 10 million. Aubameyang and Guerrero are very expensive, whereas Jimenez is only 8 million. So still looks like a really good price. You know what you're getting. Yes, we'll still have kind of Europa League and stuff to contend with, but Jimenez tends to play week in, week out no matter what. No matter what the formation is, he's consistent, whether it's a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. So I can completely see why people are getting him in. Good fixtures. Yes, West Ham away might be difficult, but I can still see him getting something there. And then Bournemouth in game week 31 looks great. So good transfer, and I think Jimenez, nothing really to say the opposite of that. I've got him in my team, and if I didn't have him, I definitely would look into bring him in. And we will leave the video there. There's the 4 players that we're going to talk about today. Like I said, if you do enjoy this video or this kind of content, make sure to give it a like so we know what to keep producing. We'll keep working on maybe changing things around as and where needed. And if you are new to the Fantasy Football Scout channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of these players. Are people wrong to be transferring them in or out? Is there other players we should consider? Make sure you leave a comment below. Otherwise, we will catch you next time. Cheers all.